let me just try to answer the second one first, and it ties into something that Tricia said in her remarks, which is about understanding structural racism as distinct from the sort of historical overt racism that everybody says, oh, we're a colorblind society now, and so forth and so on. I don't maintain that in a rich socio-historical analysis of the situation, one can escape the role that race has played, is playing in producing and reproducing the structures that we object to. But I think that if we want to be successful politically, we need allies and we need a broad-based movement. Tricia observed accurately that much of the agitation and the sort of upswell of energy and the participatory involvement in protest and so on and struggle is multiracial. That's true. I think we need a lot more of that, and I think ultimately we're going to have to frame the claims in ways that are broader than race. I could be wrong about that. It's not a principled stand. It's not a stand that says we have to be colorblind because that's the right way of doing it or something like that. It's a pragmatic judgment about how you get 51% to do something. I want to know what changes we want to have, and I want to know how they're going to happen. For example, and I'll stop. They don't do stop and frisk policing like they used to do in New York City. Okay? That's not because the police commissioner suddenly had a moral conversion and is no longer a racist. It's because there was an election in that city, and the people of that city voted in majority to put someone in power. It was always Michael Bloomberg. It was never Ray Kelly. It wasn't Ray Kelly's fault that they were doing stop and frisk policing. He worked at the pleasure of and implemented the policies of Michael Bloomberg, who was elected 3 times by Democratic majorities in the city. Elect somebody who has a different view about how to handle these problems. That's a step forward towards solving these problems. How do you do that? You need 51%.
How about others who want to address the question or other things? I can see some.
I don't know where to begin, so I'd be here for a long time, so I defer.
Well, we got time.
Yeah, just begin.
Goodness. Well, I'll start at the end. Stop and frisk did not end because people elected a new mayor, Glenn. It stopped because people organized and it was declared unconstitutional. Activism, strategic, constant, extreme activism against the normalized logic of the state operating on behalf of white supremacy was challenged by many people of different groups who are anti-racist no matter their racial background. Racial comedy, racial collaboration, multiracial societies survive if they are anti-racist, if they're democratic and anti-racist.
The idea that racial justice advocates attempt to blame all of the problems of blacks on whites when they talk about historical and contemporary injustices and how it relates to modern ills within the black community is an argument that I hear constantly on YouTube. And in this vid, I will attempt to very quickly explain the issues that I have with this line of reasoning. The reason that I object to this idea is that the proponents of this idea are viewing the issue of responsibility and injustice through a one-dimensional lens. It is entirely possible to talk about the issue of discrimination while also criticizing aspects of African American culture and advocating certain courses of action for African Americans that will help uplift them. When people talk about racism and how it affects African Americans, it's done because these are contributing factors. Identifying these contributing factors can help in solving these issues. Furthermore, there is a tendency to portray the ills one sees in the black community as the result of character flaws, rather than a complex and entangled web of social forces, historical forces, and individual choices. Let's say that somebody knocks me down by bumping into me. If this person asks me what happened, and I tell them that he has knocked me down, Me saying that he knocked me down does not mean that I am blaming this entirely on him. This does not mean that I am ignoring the role that I played in this incident. Telling him that he knocked me down does not mean that I am setting myself up to be a helpless victim. I can tell him that he knocked me down and ask for his help in getting up and still acknowledge that I could have helped prevent this by being more careful when I walk. Also, realizing and accepting this doesn't change the fact that he was the one who caused me to fall. This concept is called victim blaming and is the cause of many ills in society. Talking about institutional racism and its effects doesn't mean that we will stop trying to help address these issues ourselves. There will be problems with this analogy, like most analogies. The point being that this is nowhere near as one-dimensional as people make it out to be. Helping yourself and someone else helping you are not mutually exclusive, nor should they be. Second, talking about the role that institutional racism plays may help motivate a team effort, which is more than likely necessary due to the massive scale of the issues and the reality that we do not live in an entirely segregated society. What the various racial groups do affects each other, and we intermingle all the time. So to frame this as a problem that blacks can and should attempt to solve themselves is unnecessary and wrong, and possibly unrealistic. Plus, not all of the issues are self-inflicted, like hate crimes and police brutality, and a lot of the self-inflicted issues are influenced by attitudes that extend outside of the black community, such as the self-hate one finds amongst many blacks. Third, the problems of the black community are relativistic in nature, meaning that they are framed and depend on the amount of prosperity of the other racial groups. This is in large part, if not mostly, the result of the uneven distribution of resources, opportunities, and other advantages along racial lines. This is an issue that can only be solved via a team effort. When someone pushes another racial group to solve issues that affect them on their own, it shows a lack of concern. It shows a lack of willingness to want to help out others who are in need of that help. The willingness to help others is necessary for a functioning and prosperous society, and the willingness to help others is part of what it means to be a decent human being. Furthermore, this idea does nothing but slow progress down, and it more than anything speaks volumes about the character of the individual pushing this idea. With all of this being said, I want to close with some final comments on the issue of blame. I largely believe that blame, while necessary when it comes to identifying causes, is largely useless when blame is assigned to groups. Pointing fingers, whether the finger is being pointed at whites or blacks, will get us nowhere. If there really is a phenomenon of some black people blaming all of their problems on whites, I wholly object to this. It will only serve to create more politics of responsibility and infighting. Also, assigning blame to groups puts responsibility on the group as a whole. Not all blacks and whites have contributed to these issues, and thus it will be unfair to put the weight of this on the entire group. Well, that's my thoughts on the matter. I will most likely expand on this in another video later.